they went over so well, they had them come back and close the festival.
Oh, that's crazy.
And that was kind of like the beginning of their career. So it would have been nice to see them live in that period.
And some crazy fan somewhere was like, I saw them both times that weekend. It was crazy. It was awesome.
Phil Hartman from Saturday Night Live and other things. The brilliant Phil Hartman, who was murdered by his wife. It's crazy wife. Whatever. He tells a backline story about being at a Hendrix show that he's just like, he gets his buddy is
wasn't he the roadie?
I think his buddy was the roadie, and he invites Phil to go along. So then he's backstage, and he's just kind of watching. So his buddy's doing all the backline stuff and running and stuff, and he looks over, and Mitch Mitchell's got a drum kit on a riser, and the kick drum is starting to creep forward as kick drums do, and it's going to fall off the riser. And he's kind of pointing to his buddy. He's like, hey man, Mitch's drum is going to fall off the riser. And he's like, go and get, push it back up there, like help us out. So Phil Hartman's like, I get on like my hands and knees and I kind of crawl across, and then I'm kind of on my stomach laying there pushing Mitch Mitchell's drum back and stuff like that. And he goes, and then it happened. And he goes, Jimi Hendrix came over to me and looked at me and said, yeah, Mr. Roadie Man, we're rocking now. And he's just like, and he goes, and that was it. That was my interaction with Jimi Hendrix. But I talked to the man himself, like that.
I would so have a T-shirt that said Mr. Roadie Man.
He was a graphic designer too before he got into.
Yeah, right. He did like Poco and like a lot of those LA albums.
Yeah, you're right. I do remember reading that somewhere.
Yes.
I got to see James Brown play too, Tony. I saw him on the would have been the Living in America times at the Capitol Theater.
They definitely played that song at that show I saw.
Capitol Theater in Passaic, and I can remember Paul Fisher and I were there together. We had got tickets. We went and saw it. Their regular guitarist was hung up somewhere. And he's like, we got a special guest coming out playing with us tonight. And it was Jeff Skunk Baxter from the Doobie Brothers. And he comes out there with that long hair. He's the guy with the real long Ernie kind of hair parted down the middle. And he sits down on a stool with the James Brown band. And I remember Paul and I were like, looked at each other. It's like Ringo saying, there were people dancing to the coasters. We just looked and we were like, you can't sit down on a stage and play with the James Brown band. It just seemed ludicrous, And then was it Blackbird McKnight who was their guitarist at around that time, John? I thought that's who it was.
It wasn't what's his name? Chank? I forget his last name, but Chank, the guy who essentially would dampen his strings.
It was like night and day. He shows up and just lays it down, and you're just like, thank you,
Skunk, get out of there, you're fired.
But so Skunk is literally like a rocket scientist. Like he's this crazy physicist. Like he doesn't. I mean, I guess he still plays guitar, but. He was a big Trump supporter too. Like he was one of when
Brian May literally
Brian May's an astrophysicist, not a rocket scientist. Yeah.
But so when Trump is signing the Music Modernization Act into law in October of 2018, he's only letting friendly musicians around him. So it's like
Ted Nugent.
It's like Trace Atkins. No, Nugent was just too up there. Kid Rock, Skunk Baxter, they were the only people there. There might have been somebody else I can't there, but
I didn't know that.
Maybe Mike Love,
Right? Yeah, there you go. I also wanted to mention this other tidbit from that Midtown Music Festival. I saw an 11 or 12-year-old Derek Trucks come out because Buddy Guy played on that same stage one night, so Buddy Guy brought him out. And I was just like, oh my God, this guy, it's just so wild now. And else being the parent of someone that's old now, I'm like, I can't believe he came out there and played. But Buddy Guy's manager was so mean to the kid. In hindsight, I look back at it. I mean, at the time, I wasn't even a parent. The kid asked a question and he scolded him. And I was like, he's 11.
It was backstage.
This is back up to the side, before he came on.
When he asked, what did he say?
No, I can't remember, but it was like, you know how kids are.
Are you going to split that 8-ball with me?
No. You know how kids are at that age too. It's like, he's just like, he was probably asking like something about where does he go or where does he put, and it's like, when you coach your kid's team, you know how the kids.
I don't got time for this now, kid.
He was like mean about it. He's like, I'll let you know when you're going on and how long, and it's like.
We were at a ball game one night, and the coach was acting so crazy. And my mom, who usually doesn't have all that much to say, I remember she like leaned over and looked at me and just goes, "Oh my, that man is a fool." And I was just like, "Yep."
I love that.
Like, yep, it's that guy. They're still out there.
Oh,
well, I think it's great that Derek went on to have a successful career and not just be a one-off of some kind of,
he's having one of those really good careers. I think that are sort of
awesome. Yeah, and the Tedeschi and trucks. The other,
but he has a system around him too, where like he's selling merch. He's doing like he wasn't as damaging as being not being able to tour the last year. It sounded like he was pretty smart and he was able to like sell things and keep things so. It's definitely more of a dead Allman Brothers kind of like I don't need the radio. I don't need
he's got his own infrastructure. He's learned He's learned how to survive in that environment. That's great. Good for him.
That's not taking your calls then, John.
Well, good thing I don't call him.
Fair enough.
But maybe he's sticking it back to Buddy Guy's manager then. See, you don't need a manager. They're nothing but,
Oh, you want Buddy on the bill?
Yeah, now he's calling the shots. For the record, though, Buddy was really nice to him. He had him come up on stage, and he gave the nod to him and did his, and then was like full props to him as like, and they were.
For the record, everyone should think your manager is an asshole except for you. That's a good manager.
I can attest to. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But even an 11-year-old, and that rule goes even if whether you're dealing with a money man or an 11-year-old kid, you put them in their place.
But when you need to be an asshole, you go, hey, be an asshole for me so I can be a nice guy.
Yeah.
That's right. The end of the day is I work for you. You want to do that? I think it's a bad idea, but I'm your asshole, so I'm gonna go be your asshole, and that's what a manager does. So.
Yeah, that's more.
I would like to have an asshole. I would like to be like, hey, can you go negotiate my agreement? Thank you.
Right, to be at that point.
Ran that band with class and dignity, though. He might not have been the best, but he did it with class and dignity, and he wasn't an asshole.
You're talking about Brian Epstein?
Absolutely.
What was that last thing you said? Was or wasn't an asshole?
Was not.
Was not.
Yeah, and I bet when Alan came into the. Well, go ahead.
No, finish. Alan showed you with an asshole.
Yeah, when Alan came into the picture, he was probably like, "That's where being a nice guy gets you." Let me tell you how it's done. So, I'm going to be the asshole. And
I never heard Alan Klein comment on Brian Epstein except for, the stuff that everybody else said about, which is debatable at least. Like, clearly there were some failings, but other times people were like, it wasn't all bad, like what Brian Epstein had done for them as far as his business dealings.
It's frankly, if you made 50% of what the Beatles were supposed to make, everyone still made a shitload of money. Yeah. So, but there was some sort of, like, there was things he cared about, and like I think the movies and those are, I think, and how they looked. Like he was definitely, he packaged them very well. He did that. The bow was fucking legendary, right? That was he gets credit for that, and the matching suits and the right. But at the end of the day, he also cut a merchandising deal that was 90-10. Guess who got the 10? The Beatles. So all of those Beatles sheets and Beatles hair and Beatles combs, they got 10 cents on the dollar. That's a shitty deal.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, John, is that since when they stopped touring, I mean, we know now bands, that's the majority of their revenue coming in. In the 60s, did they leave a lot on the table by not, touring?
And probably, I mean, well, it's a lot.
Of course they did.
It's not playing at all. But you got to. It's not an easy yes or no question, right? Yes, touring. You made a lot of money touring, right? There was
even back then.
Well, no, it was saying not even back then. It's the touring. You made money in the 60s, and you made money in the last 25, 30 years. The 70s, people. You didn't make money touring. Like that was in the 80s, the 70s and 80s. It was, you got tour support from your record label, and it's the 90s too. And so you actually, you went into debt touring. It was, hey, you should go out and play there and promote your record like that.
But I thought Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin turned that around with Peter Grant, where they.
You're confusing. So so Led Zeppelin. So just the quick history was right. So you would go out and you didn't have to bring anything with you except your guitars and amps. Maybe not even your amps, but and you would show up and you would play through whatever PA there. And you went night to night, and they paid you cash. And there was a guarantee. In many cases, whether or not 5 people showed up or 1,000 people showed up, you made your $10,000 and whatever moved on, right? And the promoters were like, great, there's 1,000 people here and I could sell them at $100 a ticket and I'm going to make $1 million. Here's your $10,000, right? And so then... and
they provided, from what you're saying, they provided all the gear and all the stuff, all the backline. You just play it.
Well, no, you brought essentially it's funny, it wasn't backline, it's you brought your one amp and the drum kit, and 3 guitars. It wasn't, there was like
absolutely the Beatles traveled with gear. There's no doubt about it. Like back then,
not PA or light show
but their own amplifier. There's little box amplifiers that they were using at the time.
And they stick a mic in front of it.
They got bigger as they moved along, but it was definitely shit that they dragged along, Tony.
Okay.
And so they had 2 roadies. Right. Right. And so then like with the 67, like the Who is kind of one of the first bands that is like touring America, and they start bringing sound, and the Stones essentially lean on the Who to figure out, okay, they stopped touring in 66 and they don't tour the United States again until 69, the famous Altamont tour. And they literally have to ask the Who, how do you tour America now? And the Who and the Stones share a lot of crew and management and stuff like that. So that's when they realize, they're touring with trucks and they're bringing PAs to Madison Square Garden and a little bit of production and whatever. And so even then, the Stones aren't making money on that tour. Like they're it's a $6.50 ticket, and there's money, but it's not like that. They're getting rich from sort of record sales and whatever. But the end of the day is that they might make cash on that one, not a big one, but then they have to start bringing out production. And Led Zeppelin, Peter Grant's like, tell you what.
So you're telling me about when they're doing that, John, like you have to go back to what you were saying. This is not going through a Sid Bernstein type character who's guaranteeing them $150,000 for showing up. And I'll take...
Bill Graham is the guy on the Stones tour, right? So you're there, but there is a local promoter. So it's Ron Delsner Presents at Madison Square, and essentially you buy the show. So this is the beginning of. So there's a great.
I'm wondering, what does it matter to the Stones? You know what I mean? If there's 1,000 people or 10,000 people, like you owe me on the contract this amount of money to play one night, and I'll do 4 nights.
Okay. So let's say that. But the Stones are like, we need the entire floor of the Ritz-Carlton. And you know what? And all the girlfriends are coming, all the wives are coming. Oh, you know what? And we really like, Truman Capote. He should like be on. And we're gonna rent the Starship, the airplane with the Stones' tongue painted on the side of it. And because it's going to be, and then we could do more shows. And in the end of the day, they just end up, it's like the famous Guns N' Roses scenario where, Axl wants a hot tub set up every night, and they have a guy who just brings the hot tub and he sets it up, and then he has to like essentially clean it and reset it up because hot tubs need to be like spick and span before you film it. And he takes it down and puts it, and not on the entire tour, no one got in it once, but it was there. So, so those are the Essex